Fluffy's Lucky Day by Kate McMullan, illustrated by Mavis Smith. I love green. Today is our lucky day, Miss Day told her class. It is, thought Fluffy. Oh boy. We have a visitor from Ireland, said Miss Day. This is Mr. Kelly, Jasmine's grandfather. He has come to tell us about St. Patrick's Day and about the green land of Ireland. I love green, thought Fluffy. Mr. Kelly had on a green shirt and a green vest. He had on green pants and green shoes. He wore a red scarf around his neck. Top of the morning to you, said Mr. Kelly. I love green. Me too, thought Fluffy. Ireland has green, green grass, said Mr. Kelly. I love grass, thought Mr. Fluffy. Ireland has hills of green clover, said Mr. Kelly. I love clover, thought Fluffy. Take me to Ireland. On St. Patrick's Day, said Mr. Kelly, everyone in Ireland wears green, even the leprechauns. He walked to Fluffy's play yard. He picked Fluffy up. He said, a leprechaun is a wee one, no bigger than this guinea pig. Hey, who are you calling wee one? Thought Fluffy. Leprechauns always tell the truth, said Mr. Kelly. They are grumpy and very rich. Every leprechaun has a pot of gold. I wish I had a pot of gold, said Emma. Me too, everyone said. Me too. Fluffy was not sure what gold was, but everyone wanted a pot of it, so Fluffy wanted one too. If you catch a leprechaun, you can get his gold, said Mr. Kelly. How? Asked Maxwell. Yeah, how? Thought Fluffy. Keep your eye on him, said Mr. Kelly. He cannot disappear while you are looking at him. He will try to get away. Oh, yes, he will try to trick you. But keep looking at him. At last, he will give up and show you where his gold is hidden. Have you ever seen a leprechaun? Asked Wade. I've caught one, said Mr. Kelly. He's in my pocket. Mr. Kelly reached into his pocket. Come out, Tom, he said. Fluffy's eyes grew big. He couldn't wait to see a wee one. Oh, my stars, said Mr. Kelly. Tom has disappeared. If you see him, keep your eye on him and catch him. Fluffy did not see Tom, but he hoped he would. Then he would catch him and get his pot of gold. After all, thought Fluffy, today is my lucky day. Fluffy meets the leprechaun. Will you stay for our St. Patrick's Day party? Miss Day asked Mr. Kelly. We're having green cupcakes, said Emma. With green sprinkles, said Jasmine. I'll stay, said Mr. Kelly. Fluffy closed his eyes. He pictured Ireland. He saw green grass and green clover, and green beans, and all sorts of good green things to eat. Fluffy saw himself dressed in green with a red scarf around his neck. Fluffy walked down a green road. He heard a noise. Tap, tap, tap. Fluffy looked behind a bush. A leprechaun, thought Fluffy. Top of the morning to you, leprechaun, Fluffy said. The leprechaun jumped. Oh, my stars, he said. Fluffy looked at the leprechaun. Where is your pot of gold? Fluffy said. There they are. Over there, said the leprechaun. He pointed. In the field, see it? Fluffy was about to turn his head. Then he remembered. He had to keep looking at the leprechaun. You can't trick me, said Fluffy. He kept his eyes on the leprechaun. I give up, said the leprechaun. I will take you to my gold. Fluffy smiled. Let's go, he said. The leprechaun led Fluffy to a field of weeds. My gold is buried here, he said, under this weed. Fluffy knew the leprechaun was telling the truth. I will get a shovel, Fluffy said. I will dig up your gold. Fluffy had to find this weed again, so he tied his red scarf to it. Do not take the scarf off while I am gone, said Fluffy. I won't, said the leprechaun. Fluffy knew the leprechaun was telling the truth. He ran home for a shovel, but when he came back, he got a surprise. A red scarf, just like his, was tied to every weed. Which weed was it? Said Fluffy. There was no way to tell. The leprechaun told the truth, thought Fluffy. But he tricked me. Now I will never find his pot of gold. Fluffy heard someone laughing. He knew it was the leprechaun. Fluffy's lucky day. The laughing grew louder. Fluffy opened his eyes. He was not in Green Ireland. He was in his play yard. All the kids were laughing. They were having their St. Patrick's Day party. I guess I am not invited, thought Fluffy. This is not my lucky day. Fluffy went to his food bowl. He looked in it. He saw something. A leprechaun, said Fluffy. There's the leprechaun hiding underneath his food. Go away, said the leprechaun. I am taking a nap. Fluffy said, Are you, Tom? The leprechaun said, Maybe yes, maybe no. Why should I tell you? You are, Tom, said Fluffy. Are you grumpy? Tom frowned. So what, he said. All leprechauns are grumpy. All leprechauns are rich, too. And, said Fluffy, I want your gold. Tom pointed to the far end of the play yard. A pot of gold is over there, he said. But it is your gold. Fluffy smiled. You can't trick me, he said. I will not look over there. Have it your way, said the leprechaun. But I'm telling you, the pot of gold is there, and leprechauns always tell the truth. Is this a trick? Fluffy wondered. He tried to keep one eye on Tom. He tried to look at the pot of gold with the other eye, but he could not do it. I am going to look, said Fluffy. Do you promise not to move while I turn my head to look? Tom nodded. I promise. He said Fluffy knew the leprechaun was telling the truth. Fluffy turned his head and he saw a little pot. Could it be a pot of gold? Fluffy turned back to Tom. But Tom was gone. Hey, said Fluffy, you promised. Fluffy heard Tom laughing. I promised not to move while you turned your head to look, said Tom. But I never said I wouldn't move while you turned your head back. Rats, thought Fluffy. Tricked again. He ran over to the pot and he looked inside. Inside the pot were his bits of golden corn. So this is gold, thought Fluffy. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Fluffy, said all the kids. What do you know, thought Fluffy as he ate some corn. It's my lucky day after all. So there was a pot of gold corn there for Fluffy. So our craft is going to be to make a rainbow with a pot of gold at the end. So I'm going to go through the steps of how we can go ahead and get that started. So the first part is to take just a regular, one of the flimsier paper plates, and you're going to color it. So I took my bingo markers and I used those. They're an easy way to do some coloring, and they're nice and bright. They're usually really vibrant colors. So I just get a little bit of the ink down into the pad on the end, and I go along and color my whole plate. So I'm going to do them in the order of the color of the rainbow. So if you need to look that up, you can. But my trick for that is to spell the word Roy, G-Biv. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. So red, orange, yellow. And it doesn't really matter how you color your plate. If you do it on a curve or if you do it straight, we're going to cut it anyway. So the colors are all going to end up mixed in the swirl. So the next color we're going to do is green. So you just press down on your bingo dabber and the ink starts to come out. And then you just rub it around on your plate to color your whole plate. So you can use any colors you want, but since it was St. Patrick's Day and there's gold at the end of the rainbow, I decided to do that. All right, So when you're happy with that and you've got all your little spots filled in, so as you can see on some of mine, I'm missing some spots, so you can go back and fill those in and let it dry. So when it's dry, this is what it's gonna look like. And we're gonna go ahead and cut it into our swirl. So if you look at my example that I have, if we were to press that all together, all we've done is cut it in a swirl all the way into the center. So I've started on the outside. So this is my dry plate. I'm gonna start on the outside and I'm gonna work my way in, and it's probably about a 2 to 3 centimeters thick that I'm doing. And I'm just gonna continue going around and around my plate. So as the swirl works its way in, makes a neat design with all the colors. You can make it thicker or thinner, whatever you prefer. All right. So that's what it looks like. Then you can just pull it apart like that. So that is our cut one. And then my last part is going to be to make our pot of gold. So that is my pot of gold, and I just took a piece of black craft foam and I just did generally like the shape of a pot. So flat on the bottom and then a little lip on the sides. And I don't like to worry too much about drawing it out. I'm just gonna roughly cut it, and then I just shape it up a little bit with my scissors after I'm done cutting it. So if you see right there, I left a little notch for the top of our pot, and I went all the way over to the other side, and I'm gonna leave another notch there. So you'll be able to see that. So then have a look and see if your pot's really crooked. So it looks like over here, my pot needs to be cut a little straighter on the bottom. So there's my pot for my pot of gold. You don't have to worry too much about your shape. You don't have to stress too much about that. And then for my gold, I'm just taking some yellow paper, and if you fold it into layers, then you don't have to do as much cutting of circles. So if you layer it 3 or 4 thick, and just take your scissors and roughly cut. So gold, sometimes it's in chunks, sometimes it's in coins, and sometimes it's in dust. It depends where the gold came from. If you find a gold nugget, or if you have some gold coins that the leprechaun stole from somebody. So they can be any shape and size. They don't have to be perfect circles. So then you go through and cut those. And then I'm gonna take my glue and add those to the top of my pot of gold. So I'm going to add a few more pieces on here to my pot of gold that I've already started. And it's going to be so full that the gold's going to be sitting on top of each other. Okay. So there's my pot of gold. And the last thing we're going to do is attach our pot of gold onto our pinwheel here that we made. It's a rainbow. And so you'll be able to hang it from the ceiling, and I've left sort of a thicker piece up here that you can either use a thumbtack or sticky tack or tape to tape that onto your ceiling. And we're going to put our pot of gold at the end, because the gold is always at the end of the rainbow. So I'm going to put some glue on the last section of my rainbow. And then I'm going to glue that on there. It's going to need a few minutes to set. I'm just going to tack that on there, and then I'll hold it up and you can see what my rainbow at the pot of my... So when you hang those from the ceiling, it's going to hang quite long, and it's going to have a pot of gold at the end.